there's so much we can talk about how much is actually downloaded, who provides us to it. I know you've had your own experiences.
Mhm.
I've come well in the last 2 years to understand that it was my future self talking to me
Mm.
all this time, talking to me while I was writing the book. I mean, I was guided to what to
Yeah.
write and when.
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
And Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
a space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode.
Hey guys, welcome back. You are here with Brittany today. I'm really excited to dive into today's topic and introduce you to the guest that I will be having conversation with today. Patrick Diorio will be coming on today. I'm going to introduce him to you all in a moment, but he has so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so I'm sure that we can all learn something from him. So I'm really excited to dive in. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your wine, whatever it is, any drink of choice that you need to get cozy and comfy. Or maybe if you're driving, maybe don't do that. I have my coconut water here with me. But yeah, let me give you a little introduction to Patrick and then we will welcome him on the show. So, Patrick Diorio is a transformation coach and registered psychotherapist. Patrick holds an undergraduate degree in communication and a master's degree in counseling psychology. Patrick has experience working with children, teens, individuals, couples, and families, including experience as a street counselor, serving the Denver homeless youths, as an internship counselor, and as a registered psychotherapist in private practice. Patrick is also the co-author of his soon-to-be released book, The Integrated Self, Your Guide to Authentic Personal and Spiritual Growth, which we will be talking about later in the episode today. And he is the host of a live web TV show, Making Real Life Better on Bold Brave TV. Patrick's personal belief system is built on the unwavering knowledge that we are all spiritual beings having human experiences, and that the challenges and struggles in the world are normal and an essential part of the human experience. Without challenging times, without the pain, there is no growth. Patrick believes that real life begins with conscious awareness and conscious choice. If you change your thoughts, if you change your story, you can change your life. So, without further ado, let's welcome Patrick onto the show and let's dive into the episode. So, hello, Patrick. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hi, Brittany. I'm wonderful. This is so exciting to be here with you. I've been waiting for this chance.
Well, I'm really excited to have conversation with you. I introduced you a moment ago and, like I said, I know that there's so much that the audience can learn from you, so I'm really just excited to listen to what it is that you have to say today.
Great. First of all, the elephant in the room, if there is an elephant, is that yes, I am privileged. I am white male, right? And I'm a baby boomer. So those are all things that may line up against me. But I want people to know I am not your average guy. I'm just not. I I was actually raised. If you ask me, I was raised by women. My grandmother was the head of the family. My father's father died when my father was 13, and my
Mm,
grandmother took it over. But she was more of a patriarch, and the
mm,
women were very strong, and very strong, and they kind of led each family. Even though the males in the family would act like they were in charge, they were taking their marching orders from the women. So and you'll come to know me from my evolution, my growth, that I didn't. I'm just not typical. So withhold your judgments for a while, and then
mm.
you can put them on, right? So
Well, I know that there's no judgment on my end, and I know Patrick, and I like to not judge anybody. You know what I'm saying, but awareness and everything is very important, and we're all different. We all have different backgrounds, and yeah, I don't think anybody should judge anybody just because of the color of their skin or anything like that. So yeah, I hope that there's no judgment out there. And, like I said before, I know that there's a lot to learn from you. And I find it really interesting that you were raised primarily by women. I did not know that.
Yeah, my grandmother is my role model, my hero. I believe she's my guardian angel as well because she watched after me growing up, making sure I went to the Catholic schools, got all the education, went to the private school that my other siblings did not. And
Mm,
she may even have told people behind the scenes to leave me alone and don't get in my way. So
wow.
I could get emotional here because there's really odd things that go on in my story that it defies explanation. But let's see if we can unpeel some of that. And then my aunt, who was my father's sister, she was the one who nurtured me. Every time she
Mm,
saw me, she lit up like I was special.
aw.
Even though my family itself was not that way, it was really
Mm,
rules oriented. So
mm,
I had some two wonderful. I mean, they were all good people, but
mhm,
these were the ones that sparked me to even today. And of course, they passed a while ago. But
mm.
I wholly think they're believe no, I wholly believe and know they're with me every day.
Of of course they are. I was gonna say I bet that they're still cheering you on, from the other side.
Yeah,
I think that you really wanted to talk about inner child today. I think that was like the theme. So
yeah,
I'm curious just about, yeah, your story, how you've discovered your inner child and what you've learned from that, or anything that you would
right.
like to share. I know we've talked about it before. But yeah, so yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to just listen to all of the
Yeah.
things.
So you with on Instagram posted this image with this quote, and
Mm,
it said it's quoted by Sarah Eckhardley, and it says the inner child is the most crucial aspect to awakening. If it's not integrated, our entire being will not feel safe enough to continue its consciousness. And
mhm,
that first of all, I agree with that, I'd like to peel that back a little bit
mm,
because maybe it's not so rhetorically. If you have something to say, do we agree with that? Do we not agree with that? And do we really care that other people know or understand that this is true?
mm,
And so it first implies that there's a consciousness is our collective goal, if not our
mhm,
personal goal. So that might have some controversy if somebody's not aware or awakened yet. And then
mhm,
the other piece of that is it implies that there's an awareness of inner child in order to, and your subconscious mind, the role it plays in order to participate in that quote. So
mhm.
those are the things that really caught my mind. That's where I'd like our discussion to go today.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. I love that you wanna peel that back because, you know excuse me, in my opinion, I believe that time is not actually linear the way we are experiencing it to be. So I believe that our inner child very much so is alive within you. So if you do not give your inner child the attention and love and healing that it needs, then you're not able to integrate it with your current self. And if your inner child's not integrated, that's when it's going to show up in ways that's going to kind of prevent you from growth in the future, kind of like what the quote was talking about. But like you said, that's not everybody believes that, and that's okay. Everyone is where they're at on their journey, and everyone has their different perspectives, their different beliefs, and whatnot. But I'd love to hear, I guess, your breakdown of all of that.
Right. So so I'm big on what's your story? What's my story? And
Mhm.
right before my awareness, my awareness started, and that just being aware that I have a subconscious mind. Before that, my story would easily be that I had a good childhood. It was peaceful. I was alone but not lonely.
Mhm.
And at age 12, I created a persona because I was a shy, quiet, introverted boy to become more outwardly available, extroverted, and be seen in the world, which is part of. I mean, I think about this. I literally, so it's not even made up. That my thoughts were, I need to extrovert myself more in the world, or I will be lost, and that was at age 12.
Oh, wow. That's such a big thought for a 12-year-old, or even a scary thought. It's kind of like, I need to become somebody else, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Right, right, and the idea was, um, I don't. I was still not. I always had a spiritual connection with God, like you. I grew up in a Catholic family, a
Mm-hmm.
strong Catholic family. I never bought into the dogma and the doctrine of it. Never. I
Mm-hmm.
never. But I was still brought up in it, so definitely
Mm-hmm.
influenced by it.
Yeah.
So to have that revelation at 12. So I have some theories about that. We can talk about some other day. But so at age 12, I decided I was going to be different, be someone else. And starting in the seventh grade, they made the nun. So we had teachers. So the nun made me the president of the small boys club, just
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. And then the eighth grade, I was voted captain of the safety patrol, the president of the class. I won everything. I just boom went out there, and so so I don't know what you
Interesting.
make of that.
I feel like that's interesting because I'm thinking a couple different things. At first, I was like, oh, did you feel like you needed to be somebody else to be accepted? That was like my first thought. And then I'm thinking, well, at the end of the day, we decide who we are. We decide who we want to be. We decide who we want to step into. And it sounds like you made the choice to step out of your comfort zone and to step into, I don't want to say like a character, but you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like
Right.
we are limited by our mind. So if we tell ourselves we can't do something, then we're absolutely right. But if you kind of told yourself, I want to put myself out there more, you change that within your mind. And the universe also provided you with opportunity to step into that role.
I had a revelation while writing my book in the last 2 years that I used to think that that was a persona, a character, an avatar that
Mhm.
I took on in order to keep my little boy, the shy little boy, self safe.
Yeah.
And my revelation just recently was, and I might get emotional because I'm not used to having feelings. So
Oh,
the
it's
idea
okay.
is this: it wasn't a character, it wasn't an avatar, it was another piece of my authentic self waiting to come
Ah.
out.
So you
So
were accepting that part within you and you finally put fear aside instead of allowing the fear to keep you within your comfort zone and you stepped out of that. You stepped out of your comfort zone. You didn't let fear hold you back.
without knowing why.
Mm,
So there's so much we can talk about how much is actually downloaded, who provides us to it. I know you've had your own experiences.
mhm.
I've come well in the last 2 years to understand that it was my future self talking to me
Mm. Yeah.
all this time, talking to me while I was writing the book. I mean, I was guided to what to
Yeah.
write and when. And then I did a fully integrate. I learned how to fully integrate with the future self, so that
Mhm.
it's not a download. It's just always readily available. And then I downloaded to I connected and integrated with my little boy self. So,
Interesting.
so we don't
Yeah,
know what
because
that does, right? It may change. It may change the whole scenario and
yeah.
story in that instant.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. It's so interesting how we have the ability to do that because, again, like I said before, time is not linear the way we are experiencing it. So, we have the ability to go back and parent our younger self, be there for our younger self. We also have the ability to tap into our future self for whatever reason, if we need some tips. Something that I heard the other day, it's like if you're going through a difficult time, if you're going through a hard time, it's listening, tapping into your future self and knowing that your future self is always guiding you through it because your future self has been there, done that, knows how to guide you through it. So it's really listening to your heart because I believe that, your higher self, future self, whatever it is you want to call it, your soul communicates with you through your feelings, through your heart. So even though it might take you down a path that's a little bit more difficult, even though it might take you down a path where you are finding a little bit more resistance because maybe there's fear or sadness or whatever that may be, it's trusting your future self because they've been there. They've been there, done that. They know, they know. So it's trusting them anyways and walking down that path anyways. I'm really curious how you did that, like how you came to realize that you have the ability to kind of tap into your future self in that sort of a way.
Well, so this my last my I have I'll probably could talk about three different awakenings, but my last one was fine. It's 2 years ago when I got on TikTok and started bringing back to life my coaching, my counseling
Mhm.
need to work with people. started my business, decided to, and there's another story in there, how to well, maybe I should tell this then. 2009, in 2009, I woke up and I was compelled to start writing and writing and writing notes and drawing diagrams and pictures, and
Mm,
it became what at then was called the real life integrated self model.
mhm,
And I got it notarized and put it in a file box and didn't touch it for 14, 15 years. Well, that was 13 years then, so 2002. I didn't touch it since then because I was told it wasn't the time. Honestly,
mm,
I was
mm,
told I needed to build up credentials and authority and
mm,
things. So then I woke up. I That's why I woke up again in 2000, 2022, 2 years ago. Decided I went ahead and published the real life integrated self model on TikTok, so it's out there. I asked my co-author, Ariana Sidway, if she wanted to to co-write with me, and I'm a loner up to that point. So why the heck am I asking anybody to do anything? So at that point, it starts it, and while I'm writing, so this is where I figured out. So I started getting what we call downloads, right?
mhm,
My favorite time is in the shower, and that's what they say when you're doing something normal and with that
yeah,
mindless.
mhm,
So, but there's there there was a part of the book that I needed. There was missing, and it came to me, and I asked for help, and it came to me, and I was told in those moments that I was by this download, I'm not supposed to ask about anything more than 1 year ahead of time, and that's why I talk about it as my future self and not my higher self.
right.
Right? Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah, so yeah, no, I love that, and it's interesting that you were told not to ask more than 1 year ahead of time. I
Yeah,
think that's so
because if I
funny.
knew how it was gonna turn out, I
Mm,
wouldn't be motivated to get it
right,
done. That's what I
right.
told. So it wasn't ever a secret. It said,
Yeah,
"This is what we're doing. This is the process. Don't
yeah,
ask, and I'll
yeah.
guide you when you need to know and take the steps when we tell you to take it."
Do you know what? I love that. So similar with me, but different. It's just making me think of something along my path. For those of you listening and you're kind of like, what is a download? I just want to explain that really quick. So you'll hear this a lot in the spiritual community. Oh, I received a download. And essentially, what that means is receiving like a download of information kind of out of nowhere. It's like this internal knowing, this knowledge that just kind of comes to you. So people call it a download, just the way you can download something like onto your computer, that sort of a thing. So, in case you weren't sure what that means for those listening, now you do. I hope that makes sense how I explained it. But for me, while I was really on my path, in hindsight, what I've come to realize as we all do, receive these intuitive hits, these downloads on our path. And spirit, what they would do is they would kind of like dangle the carrot in front of my face. They would say, okay, this is why this is happening, or this is why this is happening, or do this, and you're working towards this, you're working towards this. And as I continued working towards it, what they said would happen wouldn't actually happen, or things would happen in a different way than I expected. And I realized that they were kind of giving me little steps at a time, because if I knew how things would actually turn out, it would prevent me from going down the path. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's similar to don't ask too ahead of time. It's like there's purpose to moving in this direction and then this direction and then this direction. And it all worked out exactly how it was supposed to in the best way. But it's like if you knew everything, if you knew it all, it would take away from the purpose. It would take away from the learning that is necessary as well along the path. So just like a similar parallel there, which I think is interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, and while you're talking, it make me think of, so we all have the gifts. We all have
Mhm,
the gift and have
mhm,
access to it. So
mhm.
we're all special, and each of us are special, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there was a time where I was very intuitive. I mean, I always have been intuitive, understanding where what I would tell you that I've been told from birth every step I was supposed to make along the way, and I was faithful and obedient and took him without knowing where I was headed. And this is where I was headed. And at one point when I was dating, with my anxious attachment style, my thing is I knew what was going to happen, and then it happened anyway.
Mm,
And I said, Take it away. I don't want to know. If I can't
yeah.
change it, I don't want to know. So I just started
Yeah.
being faithful again. Does that make sense? You've experienced
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I just like know things are going to turn out in a certain way too. And spirit has like told me, like, it's going to work out this way, but then it's it's interesting because they'll be like, this is what the final thing is going to be. But then the road to getting there is crazy. And it's never just like an easy, this is how it comes here. Sometimes it's like you have it, then they take it away, but they take it away for a reason because there's something to learn. And they're like, don't worry, it's going to be here, but it needs to be like this for a moment and then it'll come back. And then, so it's just really interesting. And I always tell people to, like, don't ever hold on to anything, because don't hold on to anything. Like if you get a download or anything like that, it's just trust the process, trust that if things shift and change, they're meant to change. And sometimes you're supposed to know certain things, because if you didn't know, like, how do I explain this? Sometimes you need to believe something to be true in order to learn the lesson as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, sure it does. And we're here to also inspire people and give them, motivate people, whichever that it is, to understand that this is possible. This is these are real stories we're telling, our personal stories. So one of the biggest part of my story was the kind of awareness awakening thing. But I want to say everyone has an awareness moment, and I don't know if that's true, but we hope that that's where you become aware that you have a subconscious mind
Mm-hmm.
controlling your actions and reactions to things based on your childhood wounds,
Yeah.
right? And once you have that awareness, then you can work on it. So I did that, and then a few years later, I started with a spiritual awakening, which is a great story. But I was inspired, and all of a sudden, um, life took off for me, spirituality. So in 2003, I connected with this new thought church. That's not New Age, New Thought Church, and they what they are basically, they were 150 years old in this practice. It said, and it's like a Christ consciousness. It's not a Christian
Mm-hmm.
church. I went to a Christian church, and then I went to this church,
Mm-hmm.
and I was surrounded by love. That's what they preach,
Mm-hmm.
love. There's no
Mm-hmm.
rules, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
human, and if it doesn't work for you, try something else. And here's some
Yeah.
things. And in that church, I might get emotional here. This is really special to me. So in 2004, 5, I was there a couple of years, really involved, and they had speakers come in there: Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, uh,
Mm.
uh, David Hawkins, David Hawkins, and Louise Hay was in there,
Wow.
and a couple of them more than one time. So I was immersed in this at a time I was healing using John Bradshaw's book, The Shame That Binds Me. I was working on my ego, my healing my
Mm-hmm.
inner child, while
Mm-hmm.
I was building my spirituality, and it just exploded. And that's why 2009 is really when it came to a head, and that's when that download for that model came to me. That's when
Mm-hmm.
I started my counseling business, and
Mm.
that's huge. That was huge for me.
Hey guys, we are super excited to announce the launch of something new. We will be launching something called a community on a platform called School. That's SKOOL. It's similar to a Patreon, but better. It's a platform for learning and, well, community. Basically, it will give you access to exclusive content from both Holly and I. Holly is a certified holistic health coach, and she is also a certified embodiment coach. I have a degree in kinesiology and received a certification in personal training. I also am an advancing student in mediumship development and have been channeling spirit for as long as I can remember. Through our own experience and journeys, as well as our knowledge gained through education, we will be curating content to specifically aid in your journeys back home to self. This will include monthly guided meditations, guided embodiment practices, pick-a-card readings, energy healing, guided workouts, and healthy recipes. It will also include important teachings to help you become the most embodied version of yourself. Some topics will include how to connect with your intuition, how to tap into the psychic within you, how to heal your inner child, how to face and understand your ego, how to heal your relationship with your body and food, and more. This platform will also allow for conversation and connection with others who are also part of the community, giving you the opportunity to potentially meet other like-minded individuals who are also on the path of becoming the best versions of themselves. This path is not easy and at times can be isolating. We are not supposed to do this alone. Community is so healing and so important, so we hope this will provide support for you regardless of where you might be on your journey. It's only $22.22 a month, where you will have unlimited access to all of the content as well as the new content rolled out monthly. It will also give you a $10 discount on our monthly healing circles. Holly and I both struggled with self-image, self-confidence, knowing our self-worth, and knowing what it means to truly love ourselves majority of our lives. The truth is that we are not taught how to properly love ourselves in this day and age, and we are on a mission to make change. We owe it to the future generations to come. We believe that it is important to love your mind, body, and spirit cohesively in order to truly step into the highest, most authentic version of yourself. We hope to see you there, honey. I think it's interesting, a couple things that you mentioned that I want to touch on. You talked about awareness, it starts with awareness, like becoming aware of your wounds, becoming aware of your triggers, because without the awareness, no healing, no change can actually happen. I also say, though, awareness is not enough. You can be aware, but unless you're willing to put in the action to make change, no change can happen. But the awareness is key, and it is crucial. So I love how you touched on that. It started with the awareness, and then you chose to make change and work on that. And then you talked about the church. This, I was raised very Catholic as well. I personally don't associate myself with any religion, including New Age spirituality, because I believe it's the spiritual path is the healing and self-love path, and I believe there are truths in all religion, but I think that the truth has been skewed along with New Age spirituality. I think that there are a lot of concepts that have been skewed, so I personally don't like to associate myself with it. I always say that because I feel like people just kind of shove me in that box. They assume that I'm like in the New Age spirituality because I'm a psychic, because I read tarot and stuff, and I'm like, no, like, don't group me in there. Not that it's a bad thing or nothing against people who are, but I just, I think there are truths in all of it. So anyways, I always feel the need to explain that. But that aside, you were talking about Christ consciousness, which I think is very interesting, because that's something that on my journey, Christ consciousness has, I want to say has risen like within me. I believe that Christ consciousness lives within each and every one of us. And it's up to us to awaken that Christ consciousness, to become aware of it. And it's, they talk about Jesus coming back, Jesus coming, a second coming. It's like, yeah, he's here. He's already here, and he's living within each and every one of you. Christ has risen. Christ consciousness rising within you, reaching new states of enlightenment and awakening. That's my belief when it comes to Christ consciousness. So I'm curious what that church was like. You said it was nothing but, and I think that love should be the new religion. Like, love should be the new religion. I think that that's the religion that I'll associate myself with.
Right. So I'll plug it. It's a Mile High Church in Lakewood, Colorado. The minister, Dr. Roger Teal, beautiful man. He was he beautifully. They have recordings out there on YouTube that go immerse yourself in that. I actually started not a channel, a playlist on my YouTube with some of the special ones if you're interested. But so it was just that. It was, they were singing, but there was events where we would collect goods for people who needed, children, and Christmas, all that stuff. And the idea was giving and loving. They said, Dr. Rogers says, and there's a golden truth that runs through every religion, and it's the love. Love is it starts and ends with love. Honest, listen to his recordings, and I look back at that and I'm thinking, that's who I am today. Did I become like Dr. Roger? Or he was just waiting. I was drawn to there by the energy and
Your soul.
these synchronicities, stories that I could tell you about all this stuff. Crazy how I ended up there. But the idea is love. And when I was immersed in it, and I really went through growth and enlightenment and all that. And when I was done, I was done. So
Mm,
I didn't get attached to the church. I did feel
mhm,
that there's a lot of people still looking and searching
mhm,
for
mhm,
something will stay connected with their this church or some others. But when I
mhm.
was done, I I I haven't gone back there, but my heart's still there. But the idea is
Yeah.
we don't want to get attached to stuff outside of ourselves. You talk about that a lot, right?
All the time. We don't need anything outside of ourselves. There's nothing wrong with finding community and enjoying things outside of you and seeing the value of things outside of you. You know, it sounds like this really played an integral role on your path. And I think it helps you connect with yourself. Anything that helps you connect with yourself more is beautiful. But whenever you start to give power to things outside of yourself, that's where it can get dangerous because we are so powerful and we have forgotten how powerful we are. We are not taught how powerful we are. And with religion and with a lot of these other things, people really give their power away. I mean, I'll even talk about tarot cards. I use tarot cards, but even tarot, you know, there's a light and dark to everything. People can give their power away to these things. And that's where it can get a little dark. That's where it can get a little, you know, not so good. I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but you do not need anything outside of yourself. You have everything that you need within yourself. It's a matter of tapping into it, learning how to connect with your body, how to feel safe, which this is why healing is so important. It's feeling safe in your body, feeling secure in your body, learning how to disconnect from the noise, learning how to quiet the mind. And when you're able to do that, that's when you're able to really connect with your being, the essence of your soul. The essence of our soul is love. That's who we all are to the core. Our soul is love. We are having a human experience, which means we need this physical body, which means we need the ego. So again, there's a light and a dark to us, but the essence of our soul is love. And when you learn how to connect with your soul, that's when you can change your entire life. But we've been taught to give our power away. We've been taught that we need saving. We need Jesus to save us. And what Jesus was really, you know, trying to teach us is that everything is actually within us, which that's another thing that I could go on and on and on about. You know, I have a podcast on that also where I kind of dive into that. But again, this is my belief. For those of you listening, like to each their own. But everything that you need is within you, which I'm sure you've worked with so many people, families, individuals, couples. um I'm curious, like, what you think people, I don't know if I want to say like struggle with the most, but I'm curious based on your experience and what you've seen working with a vast amount of people. I'm really curious what you would recommend to people. Like, what are people, I don't know if missing is the right word, but what are people missing that you think, yeah, what are people missing and how can they start to shift that so that they can heal, they can heal that inner child, they can bring these things to their awareness so that they can better understand themselves.
We talked about it already, that awareness, and that is critical and crucial because I went through up to 1990, so that was 45 years old, thinking I got it together. I have a high IQ, high intelligence. I had an IT job. I was really successful, raising my family. Not a great marriage, but and the idea is I own that, right? I own that. I'm not pushing that out on anyone else. And the idea is by that at that time I'm thinking I was conscious. I'm making good choices and conscious choice. I really
Mm-hmm.
you asked me and I would have said I was
Mm-hmm.
conscious and I was aware. So
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out I wasn't. I became aware
Mm-hmm.
that, from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm big into that. From that, I understood that, there's nothing wrong with me. I was wondering what was wrong with me because I had this internal rage because of father validation issues, and I was wondering what's wrong with me. And then I found out there's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the experience I'm having right now, and it was caused by early childhood
Mm-hmm.
experiences that I've got programmed in my head, and that gave me the power and actually tools. Started with the tools to start working on that, healing those wounds, because
Yeah.
with that you got to do something with the awareness.
Yeah.
If you just being aware
Yeah.
doesn't do
No.
anything,
Okay.
right? So part of that was I'm also big on Myers-Briggs
Mm-hmm.
type indicator. I'm big on that too because that helped me understand. So my question, when my practice to help people transform is, who are you? And then the question is, who are you really? So first, what's your
Mm-hmm.
story? And I told you my story up to this point, right? And and but who are you really? So who are you really means let's talk about your childhood wounds, your past, and all that. Let's take some whether enneagrams or Myers-Briggs or something that says, okay, based on testing, what who are you really? And by that, I realized, oh, I was right on an IT person, data oriented. I was detailed. I was really right on as a project manager, right where I was supposed to be. Except for I came to realize I was terrible with people, and
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't my intention to be terrible with people. So that woke me up and said, okay, that's got to change because I love people. I have my 2 kids now. By that time,
Mm-hmm.
they were like 10, 12 ish. Yeah. I know their birthdays. I just have to figure out how old they are. so, so the idea is
Mm-hmm.
now who do I want to be? And I took that information and said, okay, what's the plan, guy? And the idea is let's fix this. So I've got a communication degree by 1999. So, and
Mm-hmm.
learned how to communicate. I learned the tools and the way to communicate, and it became important to me. And that's one thing about my personality type back then. ISTJ is when you find out what's important to people you care about, you make it your new rule to do that. So I did that, and then I decided, okay, what I'm going to do with this now? What's the next step? And that's when I in 2003 when I applied for the Masters of Counseling Psychology and Counselor Education. Got a for my master's degree in 2003, started in 2004, and it just builds. So the idea is you got to do something with the awareness. And then also during that time, I became, my consciousness woke up. Now, no, I realized I had my
Mm-hmm.
consciousness running with me my whole life. I didn't know what that
Mm-hmm.
little voice was back there that was bugging me. But so I became more conscious of the voice, the dialogue going on between the
Mm-hmm.
ego, the subconscious mind,
Mm-hmm.
and the conscious mind. So the subconscious says, go do this. And the consciousness up to that point was
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay. The conscious mind would say thought that was
Yeah.
the right thing to do, whatever the subconscious, so
Mm-hmm.
you would jump in and just do it. But then once you become a consciousness
Yeah.
becomes engaged, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
you get to monitor that dialogue and
Yeah.
you say, "Okay, I hear you, subconscious mind, but this is what we really will do." And I avoid the word should. I don't like the
Mm-hmm.
word should. This is what we're going to
Mm-hmm.
do to our best good. And and to me, that's my life, and it seems like it's a little bit, obsessive compulsive, but that was part of
Mm-hmm.
the ISTJ personality type. My predisposed to being obsessive compulsive towards it, but that so find out who you are and work with what you have, and I just spoke to my client just yesterday about this. You have to love every piece of who you
Mm-hmm.
are before you can change it. And the idea is you can't change what you reject. You're
Yeah.
just not going to.
Yeah, no, I love everything you're saying and love every piece of who you are. And in order to do that, you need to bring all pieces of you to awareness, which requires honesty. It requires honest reflection. It also requires you to get really curious about yourself, to really, again, dive into your past, dive into why you are the way you are. And something else that you said that I want to touch on is who are you really? Who are you really? Because society is really good at impressing things upon you. Society is really good at making you feel as though you need to be a certain way. And it can be really easy to mistaken who you are because we think that we need to be these things. So sometimes we think that we are those things. But when you really start to strip away those layers, that's when you can really figure out who you are really.
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.
I hope others can tell how passionate, I mean, sincerely, authentically passionate I am about this subject. And it's because I,
Mm,
as we started the show, I am privileged in lots of ways. We didn't have money, but I was protected. I had a safe enough environment, and I had just enough nurturing and love just to keep me going enough. And and I still, when I got into my
mm,
adulthood, I was struggling with father validation issues and an anxious attachment style because of my mother. Now, my relationship with my mother, I shouldn't say because of my mother, right? And so the idea is, what do you do with that? And when so we're going to get so we have to become aware of it, understand it, embrace it, and figure it out. And there's many of us around that can help you with it, but if you just want to start, asked me what would I recommend, and the idea is, there's plenty of books out there. Different people can provide books. I have recommended books out on my
mm,
website. I can recommend the books that I use on my path, and tell you how to. But mostly, if you just want to get with me on with a free online call, if you want to, or anybody, I could let me talk about your specific. Let's talk about your specific situation and what that might mean for you. But what I'm really
mm,
passionate is that we talked about
mhm,
integration and what that really means, because we have the soul. So I believe in, you
mhm,
need to respect and embrace the ego along with the soul. If you just do the soul, that ego is going to come and
mhm,
slap you on the head, at some point, and try to say, I'm a part of this. Don't leave me out. And the idea is, you've heard of, I know you have. I haven't only been on TikTok a little bit. So spiritual bypassing. So I've dated women
mhm,
who were very spiritual, and I'm thinking great, right? But they really weren't dealing with those childhood
mhm,
things, a trauma that they an abuse that some of them people
mm,
have, and
mm,
that's so one without the other is not going to. So I look for peace. So my goal for myself was
mm,
peace. So in order to get the peace, got to engage the
mm,
ego with the soul, and an ice call, getting them into
mhm,
balance. So there's a relationship between them, and they're working in harmony. Even at the lower levels, they
mhm,
can be in harmony.
mhm.
And then you start integrating. That means really becoming
Yes.
a handshake between them. And when we talk about integrating change, we're talking about, well, when we start change, we have to think all every day. Okay, I got to go out and run to be healthy. I got to run. I got to run. Okay, I got to run. And
Mm,
after a while, you're a runner. You just run and you just exercise and you don't think about it. And that's the
yeah.
integration piece. So when you get
Mhm,
your soul and
mhm.
your ego
Right.
working in harmony and integrated, they're not thinking about all that. Soul guy is
Mhm.
want me to do what? So the idea is, so get integration, and we talked about consciousness, expanding consciousness, and that is huge. It just happens naturally
Mhm.
as you develop your ego and your soul, and you get them working together, and you start understanding the
Yes.
energy. And I love the map of consciousness from the Power versus Force book, if anybody wants to look at that, and to understand, where do I sit today on the map of consciousness. I'm living in, maybe it's fear, maybe it's I've most of my clients that I
Mm.
work with are really in the lower levels. They're stuck. So whether you're stuck or you're doing pretty good, you're content, but you think there must be
Mhm.
more. You want more of life, or even if you're at your best self, your highest self right now, your best possible version of you, and you just want to experience life in a different way, just get conscious, get focused,
Mm-hmm.
get your ego and soul involved, and just make a plan and just go for it, right? So yeah, I'm just so passionate
Mm,
about this subject.
yeah.
This is why I'm doing this today.
Yeah, no, I could talk about this stuff all day too, and I think what's really important to mention too, like some people might be like, well, how do you tell the difference between, your soul and your ego? So
Well,
I'm curious
I
how you
know
would answer
you've
that
talked about
question.
this yourself, and the idea is a lot of people will tell you that the quiet voice is your soul, and let's start there. But I have a I there's not always
Mm-hmm.
true. So, I know you talked about this as well. So the idea is the one that's in a rush, the ones that's in a hurry, the one that's in push. You said, and is the one that usually it's your ego, because the ego's job, and the idea is really honor the
Mm-hmm.
ego. The ego's job is to keep you safe, keep you alive to live another day. And in the ego's mind, subconscious mind is, if we do everything we did yesterday and don't change anything, there's a good chance we're going to still be alive tomorrow. Right. So it keeps you safe, but it keeps you small. It keeps you living in fear and living and fear of being
Mm-hmm.
seen. And so
Mm-hmm.
fear of any sort. I just again another client was talking about, uh, is it possible to have the fear of being successful? And I said, sure. It's fear is fear is fear. It's trying to keep you hidden. This person has agoraphobia. We worked through, and
Mm-hmm.
she did really well with that. And but now it's working on the next. So there's always layers to work through. Next one is the fear of going outside, being
Always.
successful. Okay, now that I'm comfortable, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So any kind of fear.
Mm-hmm.
What? But here's what happened. I want to say on the. So that's the obvious fear. And then when I'm writing the book, a year and a half ago, I'm visualizing, envisioning being out in the world and being seen, a public speaker. My I, I can't even say I want to do this. This is just what I do. I want to do. I am going to be a public speaker, bringing
Mm-hmm.
this message to the world that there's greatness in you. You already have it in you. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need anybody to make you great or teach you how to be great.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is to sit with yourself. The quietness will settle in,
Mm-hmm.
and then your authentic self, your greatness will rise, and you'll know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I'm envisioning, and
Mm-hmm.
it's working out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And my here's where the trick comes in. You got to watch out. The ego, once you get in that level of balance, the ego can get tricky. So my ego learned that if it kept a
Mm-hmm.
quiet voice, may be able to stop me. So it was a quiet voice,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, just the first few seconds, I'm thinking, oh, what's going on there? And then I said, oh yeah, that's that ego guy trying to keep me safe and hidden in the world.
Yeah, no, it's quite literally like the angel and the devil on the shoulder, the way they depict it in cartoons and all of that. It's quite literally there are two voices within you. I believe the soul is an extension of God, just as the ego is an extension of the devil. I don't believe, God and the devil are the way they are depicted in religion. I believe they are two polar energies and both reside within you. And, yeah, the ego can be very tricky, deceitful. It can trick you. It can convince you of things not rooted in truth, and at the end of the day, it is to keep you safe. But this goes back to the awareness. And like you said, more will come to your awareness as you're ready for it. If everything were to come to your awareness all at once, it's like I think you'd implode. You'd like, kaboom, just like right then and there. So there's, I want to say for those of you listening, take your time with self discovery, take your time with, learning and differentiating between what is the soul and what is the ego, because it can be hard, it can be tricky. I would also recommend having a daily reflective practice of some sort where you really get curious with yourself. Because without that curiosity, without that honesty, without having a reflective practice, it can be difficult to bring these things to your awareness sometimes, especially if it is a tricky voice of the ego, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's just something that I want to add with that. But Yeah, everything you said, I totally agree with. I'm curious about your book, if you'd like to chat about your book a little bit.
Well, it came from the basis of it came from 2009, the real life integrated self model, and it if you can imagine a pyramid and the bottom base, a trapezoid, is if it starts with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the basic needs, because I really love the way that's put out there. Love might be a strong word, but I'm aware of it and I really embrace it. And the idea is whether there's physiological needs. Now those are basically like air, food, clothing, shelter, right, and survival,
Mhm.
basically. So
Yeah.
if you need that, everyone needs that, and some people don't even have that level of stuff. So it starts
Yeah.
there, and then it builds up to the safety. Or is your environment safe? Is your household safe?
Mhm.
Is your family um, supportive, or is it
Mhm.
abusive? And
Mhm.
I don't kid about that stuff. I mean, some of my clients horrific stories about
Mm.
family. And then you talk
Yeah.
about belonging and all that. So it starts at the base and it say, okay, here's all the needs that you that you have growing up. And then when you don't get those needs fulfilled, you go into adult life searching for those needs, and they call them
Mhm.
D needs, deficiency needs. So you're driven by your pursuit. You're motivated to go through life. This is Maslow saying this, and that's the left side of the model, which is called ego development. And on the right side, and typically, I don't know of any. I'll just say typically, you start life in an ego mode. You start life in, and your your spirit, your soul hasn't awakened yet. It's laying dormant until something triggers it. But at some point, something will spark and your soul will light up. And then there starts a competition between your soul and your ego and your soul.
Mhm.
Who's gonna
Mhm.
dominate? So
Yeah.
that's and my whole thing is life is a series of choices and you
Mhm.
define yourself by the choices you make. So the model is driven by iterative. I mean, second. So we learn every second we're making another decision, and either it supports your growth in the direction
Mm.
you wanted to go, or it goes in the opposite direction, or it's a whole new
Mhm.
direction. So
Mhm.
we have. This is part of the point is ev- anyone listening at any moment you can make the choice to change. And if we listen to
Mhm.
Dr. Joe Dispenza and so many others, and Wayne
Mhm.
Dyer, if you change your thoughts, if you change your
Mhm.
mind, if you change your identity, is what we're saying, you change your story,
Mhm.
you can change your life. It's simple.
Mm.
It's not easy. It's simple,
It's
right?
it reminds me of that 12-year-old version of you that you were talking about at the beginning.
Right. That's what the model is basically about. It's a framework, and what I originally called a framework for maximizing and the understanding of the human spirit existence. So if you understand
Mhm.
that this is natural and normal, this is your normal part of the process, you might
Mhm.
open up like I did with Maslow's hierarchy and say, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I just need to understand where live on this. And then
Mhm.
there's consciousnesses in the middle in these
Mhm.
triangles. And at the top, I don't cover much in the book, and I don't talk about much because that's where we start talking about the fourth dimension and
Mm.
and the growth and enlightenment, where you start
Mm.
understanding. I mean, once you,
Mm.
I will defy anyone who grows their spirit and their ego to a point where they don't get to a point where they say, "Oh, we are love. We're all
Mm.
connected." It starts slow, right?
Mhm.
Oh, we're all
Yeah.
connected. Oh, we're all one.
Mm.
Oh, we're all God, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
early in this, I a quick story about. So it was probably in my 20s when um, I was getting overwhelmed by the support that God, and I still refer to as God, divine, universe, whoever you claim, but I still call it God from my Catholic upbringing. And the idea is
Mhm.
God was supporting me so much with synchronicities and things. And I noticed that my father was experiencing some problems in life, and I
Yeah.
wasn't wishing anything on him. And
Mm.
felt, oh my God, is it because of me? My God is doing this to him because of me. And and I broke down. Well, what I said was, "Oh my God, I I am the son of God." Hold the thought, guys. I said, "I am the son of God," and in the same breath, I mean, literally, I said, "Oh my God, we all are," and I'm gonna cry, and I did cry at
Mm,
the time,
mm,
realizing we are all sons and daughters of God
mm.
of God.
Yes.
He
Mhm.
Christ consciousness, Christ came to show us the
Mhm.
way and the light,
Mhm.
and so he
Mhm.
did. Jesus
Mhm.
has been my role model, my best friend, my brother since I was a tiny boy,
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, we are all brothers and sisters of Christ.
right? So that I want people to understand that I having that basis, the Catholic Church may have not been the way for us,
Mhm.
but introduced me to Jesus, to God,
Yeah.
and the idea
Yeah.
there's a value in some religion. The idea
Yes.
is not get attached. If you're looking for community,
Yeah.
you're looking for the next
Yes.
step. I
Yes.
never I never learned anything from these great people I was talking about, Wayne Dyer. I shouldn't say never, but the idea is I already built up this awareness that this was
Mhm.
true, and then
Mhm.
somebody was put in front of me to validate that, say, "Yeah, you do
Mhm.
get it." Here's the other thing, we talk about signs and synchronicities and numbers, and so everybody 1111 is always a big one for
Mhm.
everyone, and
Yeah.
I used to see that while I was growing, and one of the things I'm going to throw it out. One thing that helped me, and might help other people who are trying to transition from a traditional religion, like say Catholic or even Christian, at a
Mhm.
point, I um, and I have the books over here. I think now, A Conversation with God, book one, was the book that helped me to
Mm.
translate some of the doctrine
Mm.
and the dogma into what is that?
Mm.
How can I picture it in real life? And
Right.
it doesn't. We were all telling stories. We're hearing
Yeah.
We're telling people tell them about their experience with aliens, trans
Yeah.
um, downloads from or being a voice for an alien coming through them. And I'm not going to put
Mhm.
anybody down, but these are all stories, people. These are all stories.
Mm.
And I have a
Yeah.
belief system that if you believe it, it is so. This is what this
Mhm.
world is about. I'm
Mhm.
saying believe it, believe it, 'cause
Mhm.
it can be
Yeah.
yours.
No, I love that. I appreciate that. And I agree. I think that, religion, it's not all bad or anything like that. When I say I don't like to associate myself with it, I do see the good in it and I see the value in it. That's the word that I'm looking for. And it's, like you, I was raised very Catholic. So I like to say God as well. And there is a lot of truth to it. And, it's like a good starting point almost,
Right.
but again, like you said, don't attach, don't give your power away. It's understanding that everything starts within us. I appreciate the book recommendations as well for those listening. I'm sure that, I'm sure some might pick that up. Um, I'm looking at the time here and we're getting close to an hour. So I was just wondering if there was any final thoughts or anything else that you would like to leave the audience with today.
Well, the last one was on the book itself. You asked about it, and I talked about the model. And the book itself is written around it, but it's not the model. And
Mm,
my co-author Ariana Sidway and I each have a chapter, a part in it that we talk about our experiences. I go through what
mm,
a lot of my story that I tell here. So the idea
mm,
is to be no book is the be all end all, right? So the
mm,
idea is go if you and I have others. So I one was the Seven Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. One of my clients said, I said, this is one you probably want to look at. He said, wait, I just found it. Someone just handed it to me a week ago. Look for those synchronicities. And the self-esteem
mm,
prophecy was the one. If you
mm,
keep it in your mind, the thing that what's the question you have, the burning question or need that you have, and wait for that information to come to you. Keep an eye out for it.
mm.
Don't just sit there,
Yeah.
right? So that's my
Yeah.
main thing is be active, be and proactive
Mhm,
in this world. This is a
mm,
beautiful world. We just have
mm.
to look for it and see it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Patrick. And for those listening, I will make sure that I have like where they can find you will be all linked in the description box below. I know that you're on social media, you're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you have your live web show, you've got a lot going on. So I'll have the link. I think the link for your book will be in there as well. I'm not sure when it'll be published, but
Right.
because I know it's in the works right now, but
Let's just say yes, and we'll find it.
sounds good. So yes, you can find Patrick through the links that will be in the description box below. Thank you so much again, Patrick, for your time, for your wisdom. It was a pleasure as always to have this conversation with you. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, bye guys.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths Podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths Podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.